one day, and this is where my shift started becoming, and why I say, why do I coach people, or why do I do what I do?
Mm-hmm.
I got to realize that at my bottom, I can choose to stay here, or I can choose to try and make something for myself. And as much as I would have tried to go lower, I couldn't. There is no place lower than rock bottom. Only way left was to go up. So I just thought to myself, who could I make myself to be?
Mm.
I literally
Mm.
lost everything, but who could I make myself to be?
You can feel it. You can feel it when people have done a lot of healing, yeah, Joel. And I'm interested in your story, and I know
Definitely.
others would be, and especially the post. I've seen you posted a couple of times now, when you were at a low place, you know, and I think a lot of
Definitely.
us have been there. So anyway, before we start, I just wanted to say it's a pleasure to meet you.
It is a pleasure to meet you as well. I'm so happy and excited because I can truly feel your love. That I
Yeah.
truly can feel, and I
Mhm.
appreciate that.
Mm. Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
there, and I think maybe we've been to the same there a couple of times. So I'm intrigued to know that. But, just to hear your story and be able to share it. And what would you like people to know about your life story?
Mm. That is really interesting when I think about myself and who I am as a person and what my story is. It's simply just a way of showing hope and being able to share that light in as much as we might go through challenges, difficulties. Always, we will come out thriving, but we have to decide to thrive. That is my main message that I want to be able to share with people.
Mm-hmm. Thriving. Yeah, that's a big one and badly needed today. Yeah.
Definitely, most definitely.
The post you wrote or put out yesterday or the day before about how hard it was, and you looked like you were in China. Can you tell us about that?
Awesome. So most times I get asked the question to say, why did I start coaching? And this is the biggest question that I always get from a lot of people. Why did I start coaching? And up to now, I still get emotional about it, not in a bad way, but in a good way. When I think about who I have been in my life, I'm someone who wasn't self-aware of myself. And I'm someone who didn't truly master my internal world. So in about 2017, I had lived in China for a couple of years. I initially went there for school, but I was working at that point. So what had happened is that for some strange reason, I had stopped sleeping and I
Mm.
just couldn't sleep for 10 days. I couldn't eat for about 7 days. I kept going to the doctors, asking them what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, but they could not point a finger at what was wrong with me. This was quite interesting because day after after week, literally my body was breaking down and I was losing my energy. But I still had commitments to fulfill. I still had work to attend, especially the fact that in the sort of work that I used to do, you had to show up in order for you to get paid. And you can't just say you won't show up. So what had happened is on about the 11th day, I remember half of that day. And the only thing that I remember is not having slept the day before. I was so tired, but when that time came for me to go to work, but when the day finally ended, I got to my apartment and I finally sat down on my bed thinking to myself, what in the world is going on with me? And in that moment, I just got tired, I could say. Like, I just got tired where I felt like I was just giving up. But that felt like an opportunity for me to as well take a nap. So when I literally lay my bed on the pillow, I felt like I took a nap for 5 minutes. And to my surprise, I woke up 3 days later.
Oh
I
my.
didn't know what was going on. I couldn't understand
Mm.
anything. I looked at my phone. Many people were calling me, were texting me, where are you? I was like, you are asking me what's going on. I'm the one who's supposed to ask you what is going on.
Mhm.
And that didn't make sense to me. And something interesting happened where in that moment I started looking around my apartment and I could not recognize anything. All I was seeing are these beautiful colors. Literally, it was the most ecstatic thing or feeling that I have ever felt, and it was the most beautiful as well. But in that moment, I had actually stepped out to go to my balcony. And when I was there, I was looking around without realizing hours had passed. I came back into my apartment. Then, without realizing still, I saw myself from outside my own body.
Mhm.
And in that moment, truly, I don't know what, but something frightened me because I was looking at myself from outside my own body and out the balcony. In fear, I went. This is something that even now, when I think about, many people ask me to say, well, did you jump or try to kill yourself? And I always think about people who, for example, jump from buildings. And the biggest and best example that I love to think of, many people are aware of the 9/11 event, where people were on the upper floors of a burning building. And yet people down were watching up and screaming to the people, don't jump, but people on that building were jumping. Why were they jumping? It's not because they were not afraid of the height. No, it's because the fire's flames was behind them. And the fear of the height, them jumping, became less
Less.
than that of them burning to death. And in that moment, I love to feel like whatever scared me in that moment, seeing myself from outside my own body made me panic and I ran. And without realizing, I still remember looking back and seeing my body follow too. And out it went my second floor balcony apartment. Tried to stand up, my body got swallowed down, looked at my feet. Literally, the emotions that came over me in that moment were truly unbearable.
Mm.
Because I felt like a train was literally coming over my feet. And physically, I was broken. Mentally, I gave up. I was fortunate that my brother lived in China, he still lives there, and he was able to bring me back to my home country. But here, I found myself literally bathing and sleeping in my own hopelessness. Just spending 2 weeks, into months, until one day. And this is where my shift started becoming. And why I say, why do I coach people or why do I do what I do?
Mhm.
I got to realize that at my bottom, I can choose to stay here or I can choose to try and make something for myself. And as much as I would have tried to go lower, I couldn't. There is no place lower than rock bottom. Only way left was to go up. So I just thought to myself, who could I make myself to be?
Mm.
I literally
Mm.
lost everything, but who could I make myself to be? People around me see me as a crazy person. I know I can retain everything they are saying to me, everything that's going on. Literally, I could remember every single thing that I went through, but many people feel that I don't remember that. And when I say I could say I suffered through that as well, but I also found the beauty in that because I asked myself, what's good about this? And that's what put me on this journey that I am on, knowing that if I can be able to come back from that last bus stop, which I feel for mental health, many people who haven't even reached there can be able to literally be able to transform their lives and be able to master their own destiny, so to say.
Mm. That is an extraordinary story, and um, I think a very, very, very hopeful story because
Mm,
there is so much going on in our world today. And it's overwhelming for a lot of us, a lot of people. And to hear that you've reached bottom and turned it around, and just in the telling of your story, to hear how you did it is so very hopeful. And that's what I wanted everyone to hear. I also had an out of body experience. It was about 35 years ago. And that's why I know for a fact that there is this tremendously loving universal energy running through us and supporting us. For some reason, I was in medical research, Western medical research. So I was very logically and scientifically trained, but also very sensitive. And the it was where I went when I went out of my body was the opposite of the pain and the suffering I was going through at the time. Where I went was into outer space. I went out into the stars, and it kept getting, the first feeling I had was that it was as if I'd checked all the boxes on my list of things to do, and I felt like I could relax. And then I felt so loved, like I'd never been loved. And then this is a short version of it, but then I felt, oh, wait, I am love. And then it opened up to, no, wait, everyone is here. Everyone is this pure, pure potential of love. And well, potential, it's full love. And long story short, I came back into my body. I had no idea, like you, how much time had passed. And my life at the time was so different. I cried for 4 days. I just could not stop crying because my life was so different, and I didn't know how to get back to that very sweet place. And I hadn't expected to tell you this story, but there's a similarity to being out of the body. And you've done it in a way that sounds like a vision quest with fasting, maybe unintentionally at the time, but we can fast and detox and go closer to our innate state of love by doing that. And that's also why I do what I do. I just know that we're made of this pure love, and I just want to tell anybody who's ready to hear it, we don't have to stay in this amount of pain. And often the pain comes from people who have been hurt as well, I believe. They haven't realized how full and sweet and wonderful they are yet. Our families sometimes pass down these pain memories, these pain beliefs, these pain patterns. We're born little babies, this pure loving state, and then we get told we're not as beautiful as we are in fact, and that's part of the human journey, I suppose. So this is what I'm very passionate about, talking about and hearing others like yourself I can feel your kindness and your awareness, your consciousness. And this is what I hope that others will want to hear more about.
I absolutely love that, and I agree with you. What I love most about what you have mentioned is three things. You felt you were loved, then you felt you were loved, and then you felt everyone is loved. In the beginning of my out of body experience, in that moment, I was so much in my own ego that I thought I was loved alone. And as the days went on, turned into weeks, I kept wondering, why am I still suffering? I know so much. And in that moment, like every single question that I had been answered. But yet, whenever I tried to say it to someone, it couldn't make sense. And I asked myself, why do I now know all this, but I can't share it? And in that moment, I was thinking I was loved. After a couple of months, then I realized that I am loved. And then something was still missing. And then I truly realized that all that ever is and will be is love. And in that moment, I truly remember that day. I was making my meals. I couldn't trust anyone. And I remember someone started talking to me. I was like, huh, who is here with me? And to my surprise, I love to call this a conversation I had with, I could say God, people call it different names, but truly it's a conversation with yourself. And in that conversation, I got to ask, why have I been able to go through so much suffering? Year after year after year after year. I lose my stepdad, I lose my dad, I lose my mom, and now I lose my own mind and I break my own legs. So if you say you love me, why then have you let me go through so much suffering? And it was so profound. You say, Joel, you are being selfish. You have gone through this not for yourself, but in order for you to be able to help others. Simply because you have suffered, you can help those who are suffering. Simply because you have carried the most pain, you can help those who have pain release it. And in that moment, I truly felt love like never before, and I started laughing. People would have still thought I was crazy.
I know the feeling.
Whatever, since then, I just started laughing. And whenever I look at someone, I can't stop smiling. This is something that I say, I can't stop smiling. When I look at you, I see love in you. I see me in you. And people ask me, what do you mean?
I
Many
know.
people won't get to understand that.
I know. I
But
know.
everything that ever is just love. So I truly, truly love that and appreciate the love that we experience in this world.
That is an extraordinary message, Joel. That is an extraordinary experience. I haven't met all that many people who have had the kind of experience you and I have had. And yet, maybe you could say more about this. I have learned to have patience and compassion, having been through a lot of trauma, to see those going through it now. I just want to tell you, it's okay. It's going to be okay. But if people aren't ready and they don't believe you and whatever, it's their journey. Um, it's kind of challenging sometimes to be in a place of peace. Not all the time, but most of the time. And watch other people still going through their trauma or their suffering. I wrote about this morning to a few people that my husband was diagnosed with cancer earlier this week. And he's someone I love dearly. And I also have to respect that he hasn't had my experience. He hasn't studied what the suffering did for me was open this this passion, this quest to, how do you heal? How do you love yourself? How do you get to that place of balance again? And if he's also a very logical, sort of science trained guy and not as in tune with his spiritual side or his energy side, but this may well be his wake up moment, because certainly dying is one possibility, but I just know so much good information, ancient information, that about love and its healing power, that I am committed to showing him, and he's kind of been jolted into maybe looking at it, so this this compassion and this patience and this allowing people to have their own journey, that's really something.
One of the things that I struggled with after I finally reached my own point of, I would say, self-mastery is I wanted to help everyone. And I won't even lie, but I feel you are the first person that I will be sharing this with. I still cry till this day. I don't cry because of what I have been through. I cry when I think about others suffering,
I know.
not realizing that they can change that too.
Mm-hmm.
When I started this, knowing that I was going through that in order to be able to help others, the challenge that I had is I wanted to help everyone. And I was so excited at first, trying to share all this information that I knew. How I know, I do not know, share with everyone. And the more that I tried to share with people, the more I realized not everyone is ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I started asking myself, if someone truly says they are suffering, why don't they change? One, they feel they don't know how to change, but solutions are there. So
Mm-hmm.
why don't they change? And then it hit me to say, all of us are on our own individual journeys. In as much as I would love to save everyone, not everyone can be saved. We all have to go through our own journey, through our own path, in order to get to what we want. And every single time when I think about that, I think about it to say, I've gone through so much suffering, but it's not the suffering that hurts me. It's knowing that someone out there is suffering and they can change that, but they are not doing it. They're not changing. And for me, if I can ever say the easiest or the quickest formula in order for you or someone to change their life, it's our thoughts are what create reality. Change the story that you tell yourself and you change your reality. You are here because you changed the story, willingly, knowingly, or unknowingly. I changed my story not knowing, but I asked myself, what's good about this? I could have chosen to be a victim of my circumstance and literally gone into a corner. People would have understood that. But why is it I came out better? I know a couple of people who have gone through a similar experience like me, but our lives are totally different.
Mm.
They seem to miss the lesson. Simply because of that, they keep going through the same cycle over and over. If you don't learn the lesson in something, you don't grow through it. Because when you're given an opportunity to go through something, it means you must ask, what's the lesson in this in order for you to grow? And for you to grow, you need to change that story that you tell yourself. The story that I told myself is I had the best opportunity for my mind to be reset. Up until the age of 21, everything that I ever knew was force. And this will come as a surprise to others. But up until that moment, as I sat when everything finally I got myself back, everything that I ever knew in my lifetime up until that age was false. And having to walk in a world where people have this veil of illusion and they can't see the truth, and you are walking, seeing the truth, that hurts.
Mm-hmm.
When you others as well can see that. And the fact that even if you tell them, they can't understand that. And this is partly when you say you are passionate about helping others. I feel that because you understand this, you feel it. And it's not always ways of where you just have to speak to people. Well, you have to do what you have to do. And the best way we know is through coaching, because you can carry someone from, I believe there are about 7 levels, I could say, of awareness. The highest is self mastery, which is number 7, which is like on the high. There's self mastery, self transformation, self love. Then there's understanding, discovery, uh, awareness, where you have to also explore. So many people don't get to realize that because they don't go on that journey of self exploration, which is first, you have to understand yourself and then you go to explore. Who am I? Once you understand yourself, you start exploring. Then you discover yourself. After you discover yourself, you have to realize there is so much more to life. And once you discover yourself, you have to begin. Now that I understand who I am, which is love and everything is love, how do I transform myself? A story that I love to think of is, especially when people are going through challenges, on why you need to change your story, is when we think of egos, the mother takes care of the babies, feeds them, like protects the eggs with her life. She nurtures them, feeds them, and when they are growing, she makes sure they are safe. But when they are at a certain age, nature, which is the ego, will always pick them up and take them to a peak, a tree, a tall tree, and from there, she will actually let them drop. Now, why does
Mm-hmm.
the ego do that? And this is where I learned the biggest law in Mother Nature, in the universe, to say, simply because those egos are dropped at a young age and they experience that suffering, it's what makes them strong.
Yeah.
They have to go through that understanding transformation into self mastery, which is knowing who they truly are. And once they master themselves, they literally are the king of the skies and queens of the skies.
Mm.
And it goes back to us as I believe in order for someone to be able to master the external world, you have to master the internal world. And there's a beautiful quote that I love to say, when you master the internal world, you master the external. And literally, this is the true secret to any creation in life. If it's success in terms of money, wealth, whatever that looks like, and whatever the definition is, the individual. And I always love to think thoughts are always what create reality. It's not that many people are not successful or living the sort of life that they want because they don't work hard or they have poor working habits. No, they do work hard, but they have poor thinking habits. So how is it we can begin to better think, have better thoughts? Because thoughts in a good book that I read, it says, as a man thinketh, so he becomes. Many people don't even understand that quote good book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
really is interesting. It is a
Very.
simple book, but many people have taken it literally the wrong way. And in the sense of sowing something, we will always reap what you sow. And what we sow is the thoughts in our minds. In order for us to reap something different, we have to sow different thoughts. So that is literally something that has been able to change my life. And I truly hope many people can.
Yeah. And how would you recommend people change their thoughts, Joel?
Mm, that is an interesting question. So the easiest way to change your thoughts, first 5 things, like this is a framework that I learned from someone. It is not my framework, but unconsciously, this is what I did. A circumstance will always be neutral in life. Anytime something happens, I literally still now I pull out my hand and I just look at my 5 fingers and the thumb, 4 fingers and the thumb. So it's like this, it goes like this. A circumstance is always neutral, but after a circumstance, we always give a judgment, which is what does this mean? Then after the judgment, there's always thoughts that begin. Then after thoughts, we have feelings, and then we either react or respond.
Mhm.
So many people are always saying, how can I be able to change my thoughts? What usually happens is when a circumstance happens, many people connect it with reacting and they miss these three. That's why we always experience negative cycles. Why? You're connecting the circumstance, which is neutral, with a reaction instead of responding. So I always encourage people to play with these three, which is the judgment you give to something, the meaning. Then that changes the thoughts and that changes the feelings you have. It's not that you need to change the thoughts, you need to change whatever happens means to you. I
Beautiful.
lost my mind. I broke my legs. What judgment did I give it? It wasn't, this is the worst thing that has ever happened to me. I said, this is the best thing that has ever happened to me. What thoughts did that create? Wow, I am a warrior. I would love to come back from this and be able to spread this love with the world. What emotions came up for me? Whoa, I'm a love beacon. I love this. How did I respond? I became a coach. This literally
That's
is a
beautiful.
framework that I share with my clients. I share with literally anyone who's willing and wanting to listen. Because in as much as life hands us anything, the circumstance will always be neutral.
Yeah.
But instead of always connecting with the response or reaction, we need to play with this. Even if it's not true, give it a positive judgment. That
Yeah.
positive judgment will create a positive thought and the emotions will be positive. I would rather be happy with something that's forced than be miserable. And
That's so
literally,
true.
that's true.
Yeah.
And this is literally the pinnacle of changing your story, you change your life. It wasn't true that my life, that what happened was the best thing that happened to me. It wasn't true. At least it wasn't in that moment.
In that
But
moment.
simply because I chose to give it that meaning, everything that followed had been different, as I am a living testimony in that. So that is how to change your thoughts in that quick framework. The
Perfect.
circumstance is always neutral. It's neither good nor bad, but our thinking is what makes it so. So before our thinking makes it good or bad, let's give it always a positive meaning so that our thoughts can be positive as well. You lose your job, well, it's neutral. What does that mean to you? I can chase my passion, or I don't have money now to pay my bills. Which one will empower you? And
Hmm.
that's just where to change the way we get to see the world. And once we change that perception, literally life starts to become beautiful. I hope
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Oh, that's so good. I love your example with the hand because that's so clear. And when I was thinking of the judgments, sometimes there are other people's judgments that have just been passed on to us. Like you
Mm,
lose your job, my dad would, or my mother, or whoever would have said, "Oh my God, that happened to me." And so, go get another one, or, just whatever. The
mm,
fear would kick in, and I would have felt that probably as well. So you give me so much hope. I, especially as a younger person, Joel, and I have lived long enough to have seen that this train, this opening of love is happening more and more than it did 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. I remember reading Louise Hayes's book, You Can Heal Your Life, probably 40 years ago. I'm 65 now. And
mm,
she had cancer, and she probably researched a lot of the Chinese medical connections between our thoughts and or organs in Chinese medicine store excess anger, like the liver stores anger, the lungs store excess sadness and grief, etc. And so she recommended mainly feeling our feelings and not suppressing them. Women are generally easier, taught that that's okay. But using energy work or using some tools like you have, Joel, I use tapping in particular to clear it out of our system more quickly. And the other thing that you bring to mind is, took me up until a few years ago to see that some of the harshest things that ever happened to me, and I've had several, now I see them much more quickly as a gift, Instead of I'm being punished by the universe, I don't think that anymore. I used to think, why me, poor me, but it's got a tremendous message or insight or understanding, and it's a gift. And yeah, I may not see it right away. Like this experience with my husband this week. Feeling our feelings, no doubt. But I've also been working on the principles we've been talking about for 30 or 40 years. So if he does die, I will be crushed, but I won't be emotionally, I'll be hurting a lot. But I know the big picture about our souls and our energy and how hopefully he sees it as a gift, because he is married to me after all. He may or may not, and I have to respect that his soul is on a path, as you said. And we're always learning, aren't we? We're always getting a deeper understanding of what life is about. And I know my energy is eternal and infinite. I don't remember if I just said this or not, but I don't know what lives I've lived before, but I've had an accumulation of wisdom come to me with each lifetime. And this is a great one to be in, despite the trauma of the world today. This is a great life to be in, because more and more people are feeling the love, that's what we are. And more, it's that 100th monkey syndrome, where they discovered, some scientists saw some monkeys on an island. You probably heard this, but the moms or the parents were washing the fruit in the ocean, at the side of the ocean there. And the little babies were observing. And rather than have, one monkey pass it to one monkey, pass it to one monkey, that this was, you didn't have to eat sandy fruit. After a certain percentage, all the monkeys knew how to do this, sort of telepathically or with our conscious collective or whatever. And Deepak Chopra has talked about this a lot, and Joe Dispenza and everybody. But you give me so much hope for all of us to, it looks like there's a lot of suffering in the world right now. And my mission is to just focus on the love, as you said. What's my choice after the neutral event? Focus on what I believe to be real. This love is real, and love is the most powerful, transformative energy in our universe, and we can give our suffering over to it. Once we look at it and give it the voice, the pain that we've had, let it speak what it wasn't able to say when we were hit or neglected or whatever. And I like energy work to help process those emotions more quickly. But more and more people are at the place where they're ready, I guess I like to say. And I'm so happy to have met you. So happy to have heard your story of hope and possible transformation. Yeah.
I am happy and grateful to be sharing this moment with you as well. I truly appreciate that, and I honor you.
I honor you as well. Is there anything that you'd like to say in closing?
Awesome. So what I would actually say is just smile more. A smile is always contagious. I remember
Smile
the other
more.
day having gone to buy groceries. I went to buy groceries and there was a queue. So many people were ordering food, and the people who were at the opposite side of the counter really looked stressed. And as it was my turn, this woman came to me, of course, on the other side of the counter, and she looked at me. She was expecting me to give her the order of what I wanted. And I just said, "Hi, how are you doing?" And I smiled. She froze for at least a minute. And then she said, "Did God send you?" I laughed in that moment. Somehow I knew she didn't mean to say that, but she said that.
Wow.
And even if she wasn't aware of what she said, truly, she felt change in that moment.
Yeah.
She just said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Started saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." I ordered my food. She even gave me extra care just to give me my food. And that truly showed me on how much we need to show love to people wherever we go, whoever we meet.
Mm.
I always smile at someone whenever I have an opportunity. You don't always have to say hi, but just a smile.
Mm.
Sometimes people will find you weird, but always better to spread love than to spread negativity. Just as it's always better to have a positive judgment and thoughts than to be miserable. So that is what I would love to share.
Mm.
Smile.
Mm. Thank you, thank you, thank you so very, very much.
Mm,
Meant to be this conversation. Thank you, Joel. And thanks for being here, everyone.
mm.